we are on to block number 10, called the Snails Trail, or like I like to call it, the monkey's wrench. It doesn't matter what you call it, it's the same block. And the key to it is, it looks really complicated because it's in this strange spiral that's on a tilt. But what you have to look at is, if you turn it this way, that becomes a 4-patch. And then you start noticing, well, if you put this one, and then this one, and then this one, it starts looking like a log cabin. And so that's exactly what it is. It is a 4-patch that has been turned on its angle, and then they used a log cabin style method to put it together using triangles. So this is another one of those that there is really no quick method to this. You just have to cut out each of the pieces as it calls for, and the rotary instructions are super easy. And each of the templates are in here. So you just have to cut them down to the size that it requests. And then what you have to do is make sure that you set up your pattern as you're looking at it, so that you don't lose your spot as you're stitching. And but you should have all the skills necessary to do this. It will be tricky because it's a triangle. So you are building triangles into a spiral pattern, and so yes, sizing can be an issue. So be careful with your seam allowances and things like that, because this is one that it looks super simple. Once you start getting into it and you start putting it together, you feel like you're doing a great job, and then all of a sudden you measure it and it's small. And little bitty things, especially in the middle, if you get just a little bit off here, it magnifies as it goes out. So the mistakes will amplify through the rest of it, since it is built on a spiral. So you have to be extra super careful about putting the center squares together. And then just as you go around, the thing that I would suggest is after each round you actually square it up a little bit. I'm not saying cut off a whole bunch. I'm just saying usually when you put these seams together, there's going to be a little bit of a jog where those points meet and it's a little bit wrong. Like, you know, not even 1/8 of an inch wrong, just like a hair wrong. But when you go to line up on that next one, it can really throw you off. And so I take the time, after each time I add a piece, I iron it, I come back and I square up that seam. And then I'll add my next piece, iron it, come back, square it up, add my next piece. And it slows it down, but it makes sure that you're a lot more accurate than you normally would be if you weren't taking that extra time to square it up. So let's get into it, because I've talked a lot about it, but it's really not that hard to comprehend how to put it together once you see it laid out. So let's get to it. So let me lay out my pieces so that we can actually see how it should turn out. And I'm going to do it to where it's just like a 4-patch and start from there, because this way my brain can see how it needs to go together. Because when you turn it on an angle, it just turns it enough that it makes your brain really kind of look at it and think, I'm not doing that right. But if you just turn it back on the square like it's supposed to be, then you're good. So what you'll start with are the smaller triangles. So you'll start with the smallest and work out to the largest, and you're gonna, whichever one is right here, you put that just above it. And so then green will go there, then another pink here, and then the last green. And now we've done this one, and now we work over to this one. And so that one's going to be this same color. So just remember your spiral's going to go clockwise. And so I've got that. So that means that the last one will be pointing over here, and they're always opposite one another. Okay, so that's how it should wind up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the center, and I'm going to go ahead and put these two right here and those two right there, and I know these are the seams I'm about to do. And again, I'm going to be extra super careful on that inside square because that sets up my foundation for everything else. So if I mess that one up, then I'm guaranteed to have a wonky square when I get done. So to make sure it comes out as true as possible, I'm going to be very careful piecing this. And again, I have my 1/4 inch piecing foot with that little guide on the side on, because we're just doing 1/4 of an inch right along the edge like we have for most of the other ones. And then I'll just go ahead and chain piece that one. That'll be the last one I can actually chain piece on this. The rest of them are just one at a time. Okay. Press them. So in typical 4-patch fashion, we are going to align those ditches so that they lock right into one another. And make sure that that's good and lined up on the edge. I think I'm good there. Press my seam. Okay, so I have this first square started, and you see how it kind of pulled right there, and there's just a hair standing up on that. I need to make sure that that's absolutely straight so I don't get messed up later. So I'm going to go ahead and just trim that little piece off. So you'll notice I trimmed that off, but this is what I came off with. So it is absolutely not much at all. I don't want to cut any more than that, because when I start cutting more than that, I start losing size on my block that's going to be finished. So make sure that it's turned correctly, because this is the part where you can easily, like I could have started there and it would have been wrong immediately. So make sure you've got it turned so that the arm actually comes in as a spiral like that. And now I'm going to take this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to line the long edge up there, but then I'm going to look at this point, because this point really needs to be right on this seam line right here. And so I have another way of lining it up on this one. So I can line it up to the edge, and then as long as that point hits that point, that seam line, I should be good to go. And so I'll just kind of futz with it a little bit to make sure that it actually is hitting right there, and then I'll sew it down. So now I'm gonna have those triangle little dog ears sticking up again. I'm gonna trim that whenever I square it up. So I'm gonna take the time each time I do this to press it, open it and press it, and then trim up these edges. And so let's do that real fast. Okay, so now I have this piece done, and it's time to put this piece on. I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to turn it so I can actually see it like I should. I'm going to line this edge up first, try to get it good and straight, and then I'm going to make sure that point is centered like it should be. And then just work it. And keep checking each line. So this line and that point there, just make sure they're still staying where you want them to be. And when you feel good about it, sew it down. Now I'm going to press it and square it and do my next one. Now I've got this, now I'll do this one. I didn't get that dog ear out of my way, but I'll be okay. Make sure my point's where it's supposed to be. So now I've got that, and I'll do my last one, and I didn't catch that one again. remember, this is cut on the bias because it is can't talk. It's cut on the bias because it is a triangle, and so make sure that you're not stretching it when you're trying to lay it down, because even if you stretch it a little bit and you press it onto that bottom fabric, it's going to kind of cling to that and it's going to hold that stretch instead of just springing back like you think it would. And so try not to stretch things out of square like they're supposed to be. Almost didn't throw it on you, but I did. Okay, so now I have that one set, and so now I'm going to start with this next round. And it's the same process. Line up the long line. The tricky part with this one is this is the one row that you don't have a straight line to go with. So you're going directly into this one. So you've got to kind of look at this and make sure you're making equal triangles out of it. If you want to be more exact and measure stuff, you can, but I am not that kind of quilter. Because that looks pretty even right there. Okay, so here is our final block for the my finished product for this 10th block. We still have 2 more blocks to do. I hope this made sense. I feel like I did an okay job. My points are hitting where they should, things like that. But whenever I measured it, it is definitely not square. It's just a little bit, just a hair skewed, and it's like 12 and it's not quite a half, just like maybe 12 and 3/8, probably less than that off. But I think it looks great, and I'm pretty sure I can do an aggressive ironing job to kind of get that extra 1/8 or 1/16 that I'm missing, and hopefully kind of square it up a little bit. But I like it. I love this block because it just looks so much fun, and it's not as difficult as it looks whenever you actually break it down. But it's super fun, and I really love blocks or entire quilts when they're made out of just this block. It looks really striking where all of them are coming in at a point, and it's really cool. So I love this. This is one of my favorite blocks, and for whatever reason I like the name Monkey Wrench instead of the Snails Trail. That just kind of sounds slimy and gross to me. I think Monkey's Wrench is much more fun. And so that is the final one of that. Remember, if you have questions, just email me, and I'll see you on the next block.